Is it coming home or going to Rome? After England's big win, just one hurdle left. Back to base today to bask in the glory of last night, but already the pressure's on and expectations are high, not least from those in the know.
I've been part of the team that's tried to do that and failed in the semi-final, so I'm just urging these players on to do the business for us.
Well, the Italians will be the sternest test yet, unbeaten in 33 games with an extra day of rest in the tank before Sunday. Steve, who's navigated us all the way to this point, will assess the days ahead. Also on News at 10 tonight. Holiday hopes up at last. A green light for the double jabbed as quarantine scrapped for the amber list. Why an impending big boost to pensions could see the government break a manifesto pledge. Tom, our science editor, on the special English streams vital to world ecology, but which are now under threat. And
It's really marvellous that you've been able to carry on over this pandemic. They've been wonderful.
Well, you're the one who's carried on.
what the Queen said on the dramas of life on a royal visit to Coronation Street.
Well, I suppose life is a trouble.
It is. You've got to portray it, haven't you?
This is ITV News at 10 with Julie Etchingham.
Good evening and breathe out. That, at least, is what England's players have been doing today after last night's tense, tiring but tremendous win against Denmark in the Euros. Some have been winding down before they go again. The rest have been training as per. It was the calm before the next storm, Sunday night's final against Italy, although there is a bit of a dark cloud hovering overhead already. European football bosses at UEFA have charged the Football Association in connection with a number of crowd incidents last night at Wembley. In one of them, a laser was shone in the face of the Danish goalkeeper Kasper Schmeichel, just as Harry Kane was about to take the penalty that won England the match.
The smiles tell their own story. As England's starters rested, the others were put through their paces today. They'd only arrived back at base camp in the early hours, so this was never going to be a savage session. One of many standout performers last night, Kyle Walker, spoke openly today to England's media channel, saying over the past few years this team has proved previous critics wrong.
I've heard a lot of people talking about England ain't won a knockout game, England ain't won a penalty shootout, England ain't got this, England ain't got that, and this group of lads with the manager and the coaching staff, we just keep knocking them down, and hopefully we've set the bar now.
Of course, there's been much to reflect on. Another history-making performance. A first ever Euros final for England and a first major final since 1966. While relishing every moment of this experience, the players are certainly not getting carried away.
We've created history, but we don't want to stop here. Enjoy the night, everyone. Enjoy the night.
You lost your voice for 2 seconds at the beginning.
What's wrong with your hair?
It was a landmark match for the number of fans watching, though one inside Wembley, armed with a laser pen, has led to UEFA bringing charges against England. Away from the stadium, the party continued into the early hours, here in central London, and at the same time in football-mad Manchester, they were also having a ball. For England, these down days are just as important as any other part of the build-up to a big match. It's not just about resting tired legs, but it's also an opportunity, without distractions, to focus on what lies ahead. Paul Ince, who once put his body on the line against Italy, believes this is England's moment.
It's a great chance for these young players, to experience what's going to be a magnificent final. And, I've been part of the team that's tried to do that and failed in the semi-final. So, I'm just urging these players on to do the business for us.
Oh, so it's going to be a bit of a neural slider.
2 hours of tournament football, followed by little sleep, requires special attention. The days between now and the final will fly by. England can't afford to waste a single second between now and Sunday. Steve Scott, News at 10, St George's Park.
Well, last night's match on ITV was watched by a peak audience of 27.6 million people. That includes people watching on phones and laptops as well as TV. A lucky 60,000 saw it unfold in front of their very eyes inside Wembley, leaving them with some unforgettable "I was there" memories.
It was a night fans of the game we invented, after all, are unlikely to forget, particularly those lucky enough to be inside Wembley Stadium. Among them, NHS frontline medic Kunal Sapat, celebrating here, but a few hours later back at work at Bedford Hospital, where during a break from the wards, he was still reliving the night before.
I'm lost for words to describe last night. You know, it's such an amazing feeling. I thought Germany was special last week, but nothing can compare to winning a semi-final at Wembley with most of the stadium full of England fans.
He says patients and staff are buzzing.
You know, everyone's as excited as I am, but not everyone's as lucky as me to be able to go to the matches.
A contestant for Biggest Smile, a girl who before kick-off had no doubt.
I think it's going to be 3-0 England.
The smile belongs to Belle McNally, who probably should have been somewhere else.
Tell him you bunked off school to come watch a game.
I bunked off school.
Don't tell no one.
Don't tell Farnborough School.
After the final whistle, her commitment to the cause was rewarded. Her hero Mason Mount giving the 10-year-old his match shirt. What a night, and what a memento. Not all the heroes were on the pitch. Sam Astley was given match tickets by his girlfriend, but received a call to donate bone marrow and watch from his hospital bed.
Well done you. How difficult a decision was that?
No football game is more important than anyone's life, so being able to give the opportunity to somebody to have a chance at life and give them a bit of hope, is way more important than any football game.
There's a happy and deserved ending to this story. Sponsors who heard about Sam's sacrifice are making sure he will have a place among this lot for Sunday's final. Paul Davis, News at 10.
Have a great night, Sam. Well, Steve is near the England camp and James is in Rome for us tonight. Steve, to you first. The mood in the camp looked pretty upbeat. They look very relaxed in those pictures we just saw.
Yeah, I think, Julie, upbeat is probably the word that sums it up best. Watching them training today, they all seem like they'll be having a good time. Although, interesting today, in that interview that Kyle Walker did on the social media channels, the England social media channels, he did say that some of them are having the occasional down day, and that's mainly because they've been up in this camp for about 5 weeks now, and they're missing their families, basically. But I've been around countless squads, seen countless training sessions over the past decade or so, and I think this is probably the happiest group that I've ever witnessed. Of course, it helps, doesn't it, if you're winning football matches, but I think a lot of it has got to do with this culture that Gareth Southgate is managing to engender within this squad, and also it's down as well to the personalities of the players themselves, especially the senior members of the squad. I'm thinking about Raheem Sterling, Jordan Henderson and Harry Kane. I think they're a great influence on the younger members of the squad. So by and large, though, I think they're in a pretty good place.
That's great to hear, Steve. Thanks for that. Well, let's go over to James. And the Italian team have been talking today, haven't they, James? How confident are they?
No, I think they're very confident, and they have every reason to be so. I mean, they've gone through this tournament playing what's been widely regarded as some of the best football of all, and you look at their record against England in World Cups and European Championships, they've met 4 times and the Italians have won all 4 of them. So I mean, they are obviously confident about that. Interestingly, they recognise that England have progressed playing the sort of football that the great Italian World Cup winning sides of the 70s and 80s used to play, built on a big defence, not conceding goals. Don't underestimate the Italian desire for this. Yes, they've won 4 World Cups, but it's been more than 50 years since they won a European Championships, and they really want this one. They're training today north of here up in Florence, where there's a heat wave. They can only train in the evening, it's so hot. I don't think that's a problem that they're going to have by the time they get to London. But the one slight cloud for them is the inability to bring their fans over to Wembley. But I do think we saw in the Italy-Spain semi-final at Wembley just how many Italian football fans there are in London, and they don't doubt here that there will be plenty of support for the Azzurri on Sunday night.
Indeed. OK, James, thank you very much indeed for that. And one last football-related story for now. Don't get your hopes up, but if England do win on Sunday, there is a chance, just a chance, there might be a last-minute bank holiday in England on Monday. The Prime Minister hasn't ruled it out after more than 250,000 people signed a petition asking for one. Surprise, surprise. So families could watch and hopefully celebrate together knowing there was no work or school the next day. Mr Johnson called it a bit premature. It would be tempting fate, he said. To other news, though, now, and just in time for the school holidays, adults with 2 jabs and the under-18s in England will be able to go on holiday to amber list countries without needing to quarantine when they get back. The new rules will start on the 19th, but people will have to have tests, which they will have to pay for themselves.
Luton Airport today. The summer season starts now, says the aviation industry, as the fully vaccinated will soon be exempt from quarantine on return. Here, passengers welcome the change many would have preferred sooner.
We've been too long locked down and want to get back to normality.
Our son works for an airline and he's been furloughed for 12 months and he's looking forward to working again. I think it'll make a big difference.
Fully vaccinated travellers from the UK won't isolate on return from more than 140 destinations on the amber list. Under 18s will also be quarantine exempt. It starts on the 19th of July, but you'll still need a pre-departure test when returning and one when you're back, adding to the cost of summer travel.
We won't be testing people for a moment longer than is required, but our primary responsibility, of course, is to protect people in the UK. We do not want to have a variant come in that we simply fail to pick up.
To be quarantine exempt, passengers will need to have had their second jab at least 14 days before travel. Now expect a surge in demand, which in turn will lead to higher prices at holiday hotspots on the amber list. And tonight, the Union for Immigration Staff has a stark new warning on airport queues.
It is inevitable, unfortunately, that there's going to be a significantly increased amount of queuing. We're simply not resourced for the range of checks that this is going to require. So whilst we're checking 100% every arriving passenger's COVID documentation, you can expect to wait for 3-4 times longer than you would do normally.
Portugal today, one destination to benefit from this policy shift. Across the travel trade, it's seen as a meaningful restart to international travel.
I think that in the main, there are still some good prices for holidays. However, as always, it'll be demand and supply, and it's probable that holiday prices will go up.
It's the first time vaccination will bring such privilege. For Christine Wrightson, it also brings problems. Not all her family will have been double jabbed soon enough.
My daughter has only had her first injection. We've looked at the recommended time between the first and the second injection so that she could get her second one sooner rather than later, and even with that in mind, she's not going to hit the dosage time after where it's effective, which means that we wouldn't need to quarantine being fully jabbed, but she would need to, so therefore she wouldn't be able to go.
The holiday getaway is a symbol of personal freedom, but balancing that with public health means this remains an uncertain summer. Chris Choi, News at 10, Luton Airport.
And for everything you need to know about the current travel situation and the new rules coming in, head to our website, itv.com/news. Now, for the past decade, pensioners have known their state pensions were protected against fluctuations in the economy. That's thanks to what is known as the triple lock. It is still in the Conservative manifesto. But for how much longer? Well, today, the Chancellor Rishi Sunak hinted its days could be numbered. It locks pension rises to whichever is higher, inflation, average pay or 2.5%. With wages predicted to rise by as much as 8%, Mr Sunak said the pension rise had to be fair to both taxpayers and pensioners. And Libby's here to take us through it. I mean, this is a manifesto pledge, really tricky to unpick.
I think it is tricky, and there could be a bit of a row about it. It is a manifesto promise, and breaking such promises doesn't go down well with backbenchers or the public. Just remember how much difficulty the government's got into with those foreign aid cuts. But that said, the Chancellor, I think, has looked at the formula by which pensions are uprated, and he is very concerned at the fact that following earnings through the pandemic would lead to an increase of around about 8% in pensions. That's because earnings have gone down and then they've gone up. Now, the pensions themselves never go down. There's a ratchet effect, so it would increase by this considerable amount of 8%, costing the taxpayer about £3 billion. And he's just decided that that isn't sustainable.
Triple lock is the government's policy. That said, I recognise people's concerns about some of the numbers that we're seeing. Those numbers at this point are speculation. We don't know what the final numbers will be. And when the decisions were made, what I can say to people is we will be guided by fairness. Fairness for pensioners, but also for taxpayers.
I think the fact that the government's pretty much confirmed that the £20 uplift to universal credit is going to be axed does make it awkward if there is going to be a very generous rise for pensioners. I think more important perhaps even than that, though, is the fact the Chancellor has been spending billions of pounds of our money propping up the economy for the last year and a bit, and he needs to get it back from somewhere. And I think equally, another factor in all of this is that while this was a manifesto pledge, it is also a totemic policy from the coalition years under David Cameron. And I think Boris Johnson will have no qualms whatsoever about ditching such a policy.
There's a lot of forces at play there, aren't there, Libby? Thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you. Now, that great sporting spectacle, the Olympic Games, will, after all, be held without any spectators this year. They start in a fortnight tomorrow in Tokyo. At this late stage, the Japanese government has declared a state of emergency in the city. It'll last throughout the Games and beyond. And here's why. There are currently 1,683 confirmed new cases a day in Japan, adding up to more than 800,000 since the pandemic began, while just 15% of the population have been fully vaccinated. None of it is what the athletes want to hear so near to the Games.
As the head of the International Olympic Committee flew into Tokyo today, there was yet another setback. Thomas Bach did his best to put a brave face on the latest restrictions. But a new state of emergency is being imposed in Japan's capital, just 15 days before the greatest sporting festival in the world is due to get underway. The Japanese Prime Minister insisted there was no alternative.
ここで再度東京を起点とする感染拡大を起こすことは
We must avoid another outbreak. The announcement came just hours before Japan said all spectators would be banned. The real problem is the slow rollout of vaccines. There have been only 15,000 deaths, far lower than the UK, but the most vulnerable won't be vaccinated until autumn. At a socially distanced press conference, Team GB officials digested the news.
That is sad when you've been watching the Euros and seeing how exciting live sport can be with fans back in stadiums, and it really does bring a lot of happiness to people. So we have a lot of sadness and regret around that decision for the Japanese people in particular, because it's a massive thing, as we know from 2012.
British sprinter Amani Lara Lancico has been building towards these games for years. She won a European Championship gold medal as part of the British relay squad, but understands Tokyo will be very different.
Kind of feels like month by month we're having to adjust to even more changes, even more things in place, the testing, the loss of the kind of feel of the Olympic Village, getting to explore, getting to really be at the Olympics and experience the whole process properly. It's kind of been taken away a little bit.
We've just heard that no spectators are going to be allowed to go to any of the venues. Do you think that's going to spoil this Olympics for you?
It is heartbreaking that it's not going to be the glittery event that I had in my mind. It's not going to be with my granny and my dad in the crowd. But it is what it is. And after the 18 months that we've all had as a nation, I think this probably mounts on the pressure even more to want to perform and to shine and to bring home a medal.
The demands to abandon the Games have been ignored. They will go ahead. But the Olympic flame will be lit in an empty stadium, another victim of COVID. Juliet Bremner, News at 10.
President Biden had to defend his Afghan strategy tonight in the face of intense questioning by the media after he made an impassioned case for pulling US troops out of Afghanistan 2 months earlier than planned. It was time, he said, for the Afghan people to decide their own future. No outside nation or empire had ever been able to unify the country.
After 20 years, $1 trillion spent training and equipping hundreds of thousands of Afghan national security and defense forces. 2,448 Americans killed, 20,722 more wounded, and untold thousands coming home with unseen trauma to their mental health. I will not send another generation of Americans to war in Afghanistan with no reasonable expectation of achieving a different outcome.
Well, nearly 20 years after British troops first went into Afghanistan, the Prime Minister confirmed that almost all of them were now out. He was making a statement to MPs this afternoon. Mr Johnson spoke up for what he called the valour and sacrifice of those who had served there. More than 450 never came back. Mr Johnson denied Britain was giving up on its commitment to the country. He said the threat from Al-Qaeda had decreased. Police in Haiti have arrested 6 people in connection with the assassination of the country's president, Jovenel Moïse. One is a US citizen. 4 other suspects were shot dead in a gun battle with the police. President Moïse himself was shot dead in his home in the early hours of Wednesday morning. Now to an endangered treasure of the world around us. There are a little over 200 of them on the planet, and the vast majority are in England. They are more endangered than the black rhino. They are, in fact, chalk streams, often referred to by naturalists as Britain's Great Barrier Reef. But where they should be clean and pure with water from underground springs, less than a fifth actually are. Pollution, over-extraction and lack of rainfall are to blame.
Chalk streams are very special. Their crystal clear water filtered through chalk is home to salmon and trout. Birds and insects are drawn to their banks, and certain people too. Julia and Rachel take a swim down the River Itchen in Hampshire every day.
You see things from this vantage point that you just would never see walking on the path. You can see the kingfishers or the bats at dusk, and it certainly opened up, my eyes to the world that we just live in.
The serenity once you get in the water, the feel, being in nature, and just really, it's almost like it soaks your cares away.
There's only around 200 chalk streams on the planet, making them one of the rarest river habitats we've got, and 85% of them are found here in England. So it might surprise you to learn just how often our sewage gets pumped into them. It rained on Monday night, and on Tuesday morning we got a call from campaigners on Buckinghamshire's River Chess that sewage, once again, was flowing into the river.
And you can see the difference in quality in the water, because at the moment we're having a discharge of sewage from the Chesham sewage treatment. Last year we had about 50 events similar to this. This year already we've had 96 events.
Water companies are allowed to release raw sewage into rivers in emergencies, like storms when sewers are overwhelmed by floods. But it's a lot more routine than that. In 2019, there were just under 300,000 instances of sewage discharged into England's rivers and seas. Last year, that rose 37% to more than 400,000 instances, equivalent to sewage being released non-stop for 3.1 million hours. Fergal Sharkey, fly fisherman and former frontman of 1970s punk band The Undertones, has turned his talent toward protecting chalk streams.
The simple truth of the matter is, water companies have, since they were privatised, paid out over £60 billion in dividends to their shareholders. Last year, water companies spent over 3.1 million hours dumping sewage into England's rivers. They got £60 billion in dividends, we got rivers full of sewage.
Thames Water, which puts sewage into the River Chess, told us it's investing
now
to
from
improve
the
the capacity of treatment works to address the issue. Water UK, which represents water companies, said the industry as a whole is investing £5 billion overall on environmental improvements. But campaigners argue far more investment is needed. especially by a government that's vowed to protect and restore the environment. Tom Clark, News at 10.
No, you can't exactly call her a regular when she hasn't been for 39 years, but the Queen was back at Britain's most famous pub this lunchtime, what you might call a return to the Rovers' return on Coronation Street. It was all part of the programme's 60th birthday celebrations. There was advice from the cast: keep off the cobbles.
At 60 years old, Coronation Street has reigned almost as long as the Queen herself, but they stopped filming today just for a moment to welcome a new customer at the Rovers' return.
Don't walk on the cobble. No. Oh no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Audrey and Rita should know, between them they've walked up and down this street for a mere 99 years.
There's quite a lot of work to do. And you'll do it every day.
And the Queen was told how this British institution kept filming despite the challenges of the past year.
Well, we've been sort of in lockdown. We've been in masks, rehearsing and everything. And it was like we were let out into sunshine. It was wonderful. Yeah.
And the chat down the pub when the Queen went inside was about lockdown and just how hard it's been.
Life has been very hard for people, hasn't it? It hasn't lockdown.
Just that we managed to have the comedy with the drama.
Yes.
So that's been a really, really important thing over the lockdown as well.
Well, there wasn't much to laugh about,
I'm proud of the programme, that it's continued, that people have enjoyed the fact that they can still tune in and see the street and see the people they know.
But it's not been easy, has it? Because you've had to do it with all the restrictions and social distancing.
2 metres apart. Yeah. Which Sue finds very difficult.
Despite a pause for the first couple of weeks at the beginning of the pandemic, filming on these famous cobbles has continued throughout the past year. And that, the Queen was told, meant they could continue with the happy storylines as well as the more troublesome ones.
We try to balance the trouble with some niceness, ma'am. There's some trouble, I'll be honest.
Well, I suppose life is a trouble.
It is. You've got to portray it, haven't you?
I'm feeling slightly patriotic today in my red and white. So to say that we're in the football final, the Queen's come and visited Coronation Street this week. It's a pretty good week.
The Queen might have avoided Corrie's cobbles today, but she wasn't going to leave without the music. Chris Ship, News at 10. Coronation Street.
And finally, with the football in mind again, we're keeping the Italian theme going right to the end of the programme. England fans will be hoping the Eurovision Song Contest in May was not an omen. The UK got 0 points. The winner of that particular European contest, you might remember, Italy. The rock group who came first see parallels between football and music. They're currently recording in England, but of course, we'll still be cheering for Italy.
They, at least, are on a winning streak. After conquering Eurovision, Måneskin have been in the studio in Rome recording non-stop, except, of course, for the days when Italy are playing and the break they'll have on Sunday when their team meets England.
Yeah. We're gonna be enemies.
Yeah, exactly. You beat the United Kingdom by 524 points at the Eurovision Song Contest. We're just hoping you show England a little bit more mercy.
We don't.
It's not us who's playing, unfortunately.
Whatever happens, topping the charts across Europe, with 2 songs making the UK top 10. And now having the most streamed song globally on Spotify means their dream of playing in Britain, music that is a step closer.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, that's amazing. I don't know, it's hard to believe it, but it's actually real. So we're kind of realizing what's happening day by day, but that's huge.
Yeah, we can never expect something like that, of course.
What means the most to the people of Italy, music or football?
I don't know.
I think music does.
I think both.
Both. They're like different things. They give like different emotions, and
exactly.
I think they give like both give a sense of being part of something.
Italy and they will be hoping for a bit more of this on Sunday, but Måneskin remind us it is just a football game.
Would you rather win that cup or be #1 in the charts all over the world?
Fucking be number one in the charts.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
There'll be plenty of people here hoping Måneskin's unstoppable success hasn't rubbed off on their national team. Nina Nanarb, News at 10.
Oh, Nina, that is it for tonight from the News at 10 team here and still working from home. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow.